Okay, excuse me, quiz 16A. I just put down the ones that you had wrong. So for the number 1, it said 3x minus 5y equals 25, and the direction said solve for y. So we need to get y alone. Excuse me. So the first thing we want to do is subtract 3x, which you did do. You subtracted the 3x from both sides. And so what you get then is your negative 5y equals, and usually we put the minus 3x first and then the plus 25, but it could be switched around the other way, which would be fine. And then we need to get y alone, so we're going to divide by negative 5. And everything in the problem will get divided by negative 5. And when we do that, we have the y here, and then a negative divided by a negative. Whenever you have two negative signs, they actually become positive. So in your answer, it needed to be a positive 3x over 5, and then a negative and a positive create a negative, so it'd be a negative 5. Or it could have been written as y equals negative 5 plus 3x over 5, because this is positive and this is negative. So the format that you put in would have been fine, but your signs are backwards. Then number 4 was the next one you missed, and I believe, if I remember right, you answered negative 1 and the actual answer was positive 1. So if we go ahead and get rid of fractions first, I'm going to multiply everything by 3 to get rid of the fraction, because we have a denominator of 3 here. And remember, you don't do what's in the parentheses, so everything except for what's in the parentheses. So then that gives us 2, and then 2x plus 1 equals 12, and 1 minus 3x, and then plus 30, because everything that's not in parentheses gets multiplied by 3. Then when we distribute with multiplication here, we're going to get 4x plus 2 equals 12 minus 36x plus 30, because a positive times a negative gave us the negative 36. We're going to go ahead and clean up if we can. Like on this side we have a 30 and we have a 12 that can be put together. So we're going to have 4x plus 2 equals, you can write negative 36 x plus 42, or 42 minus 36x. We'll get rid of one of our x's. I'm going to get rid of this one because it's negative, but you could get rid, if you subtracted 4x from both sides, you'd get a negative 40 here. But I like to get rid of negative numbers, so I'm going to add 36x to both sides, which leaves me with 40x plus 2 equals 42. Then I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, so I get 40x equals 40. And then 40 divided by 40 is positive 1. If you had done, I think probably what you did is the other way, where you subtracted 4 from both sides. So I'm going to show you that so you can see what your mistake was. So if you subtracted 4x from both sides, you would get a negative 40x plus 32, or 42, excuse me, over here. And then when you subtract 42 from both sides, you would get negative 40 equals negative 40x. Excuse me, and when you divide by negative 40 on both sides, again, you have that situation when there's two negatives, they come together, they create a positive when you're doing multiplication or division, and the fractions are division, so two negatives make a positive, and that's how you end up with a positive one. Excuse me. So then this one wants to know what's the maximum value for b if this end has to be less than or equal to 1,720. So we're going to solve this as if this was just an equal sign to start with. So we're going to subtract 200 from both sides because we want to get b alone. And so we're going to have then 40b less than or equal to 1,520. And then to get b by itself, we're going to divide by 40 on both sides. And when we do that, it comes out to 38. Then the next one, number 6, this one you had close to the right answer, but you gave your answer in decimal form, and decimals are not as accurate as fractions. So don't ever change them to decimals unless you're told to, because we want to keep things in fraction forms. I know you don't like working with the fractions, but for this course, you're just going to have to. And it's going to be really intense in Mod 4. We're going to use fractions a lot. So now is the time to get lots of practice with it. So we're going to keep them in fraction form. We'll multiply everything by the common denominator, which the denominator for 8 and 6 that, excuse me, is the smallest thing they have in common is 24. So we'll multiply each thing by 24. Everything in the problem by 24. So we get 48x, I'm going to write that on the next line, sorry. 48x plus 21 equals, let's see, 72x minus 42. And then we'll get rid of the extra x. I'll get rid of the 48 since it's the smallest, but you could have gotten rid of the 72. It doesn't matter. So then they get 21 equals, let's see, 24x minus 42. Now we're going to work towards getting x alone, so we'll add 42 to both sides. It's because it's being subtracted, so we'll add it. So that gives us 80, no, not 83, 63. 63 equals 24x. And then when you divide both sides by 24, it's 63 over 24. And we want to reduce this fraction. Now, I know both of them can be divided by 3, so let's start there. That would make 21 over 8. And if you divided that, 21 divided by 8, you would get the 2.33333. It would kind of go on forever, I believe. Sorry if I did that right. For some reason that's not sitting right with me. I'm gonna look at something real quick, make sure I copied the problem right, and oh, you know what, I didn't. It's 7/6 instead of 7/8, so that totally messed me up. But that was the point. Don't change it to decimal. Sorry about that. This was a 6 and I copied the problem down wrong. The actual correct answer was 7/3, because we would have, instead of multiplying by 24, we would multiply everything by 6. Let me redo that one. I'll do it up here. So we have 2x plus 7/6 equals 3x minus 7/6. Okay, that's better. So we're going to multiply everything by 6 because that would be the common denominator. And that's what you get when everything gets multiplied by 6. I'll subtract 12x from both sides. So that gives me this. Then I'm going to add 7 to both sides. And then divide both sides by 6. So it gives me 14 over 6. And if you reduce that, both of those can be divided by 2. That's what they have in common, is a 2. So we'll do 7 over 3, and that's how you get that answer. Okay, lastly, number 8. The easiest thing to do when it comes to decimals is move all the decimals the same. Okay, so except for not what's in parentheses. Just like with the fractions, we don't mess with what's in the parentheses when we're getting rid of them. So there's 2 decimal places here, there's 2 here, and there's 1 here. So they all are going to move 2 places. Move that one over 2, move that one over 2, and move this one over 2. And so what you get then is 5x minus 375 equals 40 times x minus 5. And then we'll get rid of our parentheses, which gives us 40x minus 200. And then we'll get rid of one of our x's. Again, it doesn't matter which, but I like to get rid of the small one. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. So we have minus 375 is equal to 35x minus 200. So now we're going to x alone. So I'll add 200 to both sides. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 35. Excuse me. So we have a negative 175 divided by 35. And so we want to reduce that fraction. Now you can put it in your calculator if you want to. I believe it equals 5. I think 35 and 35 is 70. 74. Yeah, so when you do that, it comes out to be negative 5.